Hi, this is Marissa and I'm your Juvenile Services Librarian at the Lebanon Public Library. I'm here today to read with you a few different books, and the subject this week will be toys. So let's get started. The first book we're going to be reading is Curious George Visits a Toy Store. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today was the opening of a brand new toy store. George and the man with the yellow hat did not want to be late. When they arrived, the line to go inside wound all the way around the corner. When a line is this long, it is not easy for a little monkey to be patient. George sneaked through the crowd. All he wanted was a peek inside. George got to the door just as the owner opened it. "This is no place for a monkey," she said. But George was so excited he was already inside. Balls, dolls, bicycles, and games filled the shelves. There were so many toys. George didn't even know how some of them worked. And how about these hoops? What did they do? George was curious. He climbed up to pull one out of the pile. It would not move. George pulled harder. Still, it wouldn't move. George pulled with all fours. Suddenly, there was a terrible crash. Red, blue, green, and yellow hoops bounced up and down and everywhere. "Look!" exclaimed a boy, bouncing up and down himself. "Why, I haven't seen one of these in years," said the boy's grandmother. She put a hoop around her waist and gave it a spin. George tried the hula hoop too. Then George pretended to be a wheel. He rolled and rolled and... Oops! He rolled right into the owner. The owner shook her head. "I knew you were trouble," she said. "Now you've made a mess of my new store." Again, she tried to stop George. And again, George was too quick. In only a second, he was around the corner and on the highest shelf. Below him, George saw a little girl point to a toy out of reach. "Mommy, can we get that dinosaur?" she asked. George picked up the dinosaur and lowered it to the girl. She was delighted. So was the small boy next to her. "Could you get that ball for me, please?" he asked George. George reached up, grabbed the ball, and bounced it to the boy. "May I have that puppet over there?" asked another girl. How lucky that George was a monkey. He swung off the shelf, hung onto a light, picked up the puppet, and put it right into her hands. "What a show!" shouted the boy. The children held up their new toys and cheered. What a commotion! Immediately the owner came running, and then came the man with the yellow hat. "I think we've had enough monkey business for one day," said the owner. Just then, a girl got in a long line to pay. "What a great store," she said. "What a great idea to have a little monkey helping you," Father told the owner. "I guess you're right," the owner replied and smiled. Then she gave George a special surprise. "Thank you, George," she said. "My grand opening is a success because of you. Perhaps monkey business is the best business after all." The end. We see he got an owner's apron just like the woman. All right. Our next book is one that reminds us that sometimes we have toys in unlikely places. It's called Tub Toys by Terry Miller Shannon and Timothy Warner. Daddy calls out, "Bath time!" The knob squeaks and water pours. I knock down my block tower and go racing through the door. I throw one duck in my tubby. Bonk. He's the only duck I own. I add his wind-up froggy friend so he won't be all alone. Then I squeeze in extra bubbles and add a beach ball, noodle strainer, 2 trucks with rubber wheels, and a huge ice cream container. My mother says, "Now hurry or your water won't be warm." So I quick toss in an egg beater to whip up a bubble storm. An empty bottle sure is good, but 3 would be much better. Where's that doll who likes to swim? I hurry off to get her. "Get in!" I hear Daddy call, but I have just begun. I know I need more tub toys, or my bathing won't be fun. Splish, splash, splosh, splash, 4 blocks fall through the foam, and I can't forget my astronaut inside his spaceship home. Maybe I'll add a plastic book in case I want to read, and a long parade of animals that help my elephant can lead. My mother gives the squinty eye, her hands are on her hips. But I can't seem to help myself. I need 5 ships. She clears her throat, ahem, and waves her finger in the air. Then points in my direction. Your toy box is almost bare. If you really want me to hurry, you can help me, I suggest. Bring a spatula and your funnel. Your funnel is the best. She shakes her head from side to side. Looks to me like you have plenty. You've picked so many playthings, why there must be more than 20. I'm finally climbing in my bath, but stop at what I see. The tub is crammed, so full of toys, there's not a spot for me. The end. Well, he had so many toys and that was fun, but he wasn't able to get into the tub himself. You should remember that when you're getting your tub toys out. Okay, the next book we have to read is called The Littlest Train, and it's by Chris Gall. In a small room down a short flight of stairs, there lived a little train. He spent his days circling a tiny town. It was the only neighborhood he had ever known. One day, the ground shook and a shadow appeared overhead. It could only mean one thing. Mr. Fingers was back in town. This time Mr. Fingers knocked over the crane, which bumped the train, who fell down, 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 and into a brand new world. The little train spotted a tunnel. It was time to explore. Look at all those things this train is seeing. Shines his light. He sees an ant. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mice eating cheese for dinner. Oh, 2 bugs. Oh, and there's the exit, so let's see where he goes. The world beyond seemed vast and strange until the little train spotted something familiar in the distance. It was the biggest train he had ever seen. Mighty Max steamed up and offered a ride. "Hey there, my little one," he rumbled. When my 100 tons really gets rolling, I can show you some sights. They thundered off together with the wind in their smokestacks. Do we see a little train riding there with Mighty Max? Around the bend, Chloe Cogs chugged up and offered to carry the little train to the top of the world. Come with me, little train, she said. I've got 32 teeth on my gears and I never slip back. I'll take you to a place where you can see forever. Forever looked wonderful, but the little train realized there was one thing he could not see, his home. Luckily, Sarah's speedster was nearby. Hop in, she said. At 150 miles per hour, we'll get you home lightning quick. Sarah's speedster raced as far and as fast as she could, but everything zoomed by in a blur and the little train could not spot his home. By the time they arrived at the switching yard, the sun was getting low. Mr. Fingers would surely have noticed that the little train was missing. Farley Freighter had an idea. He traveled far and wide to deliver goods, so he knew of a place where little trains lived. All aboard, he whistled. There he goes. And there's that little truck right there, waiting to go home. He's hoping he finds his home. Finally, the little train did not feel so little anymore. But he had no tracks, no trees, no table, and he missed his new friends. Then the little train saw a familiar shadow. Mr. Fingers! Mr. Fingers found the little train. The little train was finally home. Mr. Fingers had been busy and there was a brand new town to explore. And it was so much more fun to be exploring with friends. And some of those friends look familiar, don't they? Mighty Max, Sarah Speedster, Chloe Cogs. Okay, we have one more book to read about toys and how special some of our toys are to us before Racheal comes on and talks to you about your craft for the week. This last book is called Knuffle Bunny, a Cautionary Tale by Willems. Not long ago, before she could even speak words, Trixie went on an errand with her daddy. Trixie and her daddy went down the block, through the park, past the school, and into the laundromat. Trixie helped her daddy put the laundry into the machine. She even got to put the money into the machine. Then they left. But a block or so later, Trixie realized something. Trixie turned to her daddy and said, "Aggle flaggle blaggle." "That's right," replied her daddy. "We're going home." "Aggle flaggle clabble," said Trixie again. "Blaggle plabble, whoopie flabby, snurp." "Now, please don't get fussy," said her daddy. Well, she had no choice. Trixie bawled. Wah! She was boneless. She did everything she could to show how unhappy she was. By the time her daddy got her home, her daddy was unhappy too. As soon as Trixie's mommy opened the door, she asked, "Where's Knuffle Bunny?" The whole family ran down the block, They ran through the park. They zoomed past the school and into the laundromat. Trixie's daddy looked for Knuffle Bunny and looked, but Knuffle Bunny was nowhere to be found. So Trixie's daddy decided to look harder until Knuffle Bunny! And those were the first words Trixie ever said. The end. Well, I hope you all enjoyed our stories today about toys. Some maybe you were familiar with, and some stories maybe were not as familiar. So I'm going to switch over to Racheal now, who is going to tell you about our craft.
Okay, hi friends. Today we have a craft that is my favorite craft so far. We're making Forky from Toy Story 4. So we didn't have any forks, but we have, sporks, but we had a spoon. So you can make your own spork by just cutting little slits at the top to make him look like a spork. And then you'll get 2 googly eyes of different sizes, and you'll glue those on. And then you'll get a tiny red pipe cleaner that you'll put on for his eyebrows, and then a tiny blue pipe cleaner. You can make his expression look like whatever you want. I made him look surprised. And then you'll get 1 long red pipe cleaner. You'll just wrap it around the spoon and then wiggle it. You can bend it so that he looks like his arms are wiggly. And then at the bottom, you'll get a little tiny piece of Play-Doh that you can stick the bottom of the spoon in. And then you'll also get a popsicle stick. You won't use the whole thing, but you can cut it so you can use both ends of it and then just don't use the middle. I drew a little rainbow on there like she does in Toy Story 4. And then she also wrote her name at the bottom, so I wrote my name at the bottom. So then you just kind of stick those to the Play-Doh, and then he stands up. And there's your Forky. So that's the curbside craft, so you can call and ask for one of those this week. Or you can do one at home, which is the principal craft, and it's just a paper Forky. So you just have a spoon there, and you do the same thing where you make the little slits at the top, cut that out. You'll cut his eyes out and glue those on. His mouth is just one expression. And then my Forky, I forgot to put his little feet on, but you can use these popsicle sticks to put his feet on at the bottom. He won't be able to stand up, but it'll look like he has little feet. And then he's got his eyebrows there, and this is pretty thick, but I didn't use the whole eyebrow. I just made like a little tiny version of it. And then for his arms, you've got 1 long squiggle here, and I colored it red, and then I just glued it on the back. So there's your paper Forky. So those are your 2 crafts this week, and we hope you enjoyed the story time. So we'll see you next week.